it's 5 days that we're talking. It's a week here. And that not even a week, that he's going to be down and we expect him to be called up and then be part of this rotation. But to me, the message is twofold. If you're going to make the argument that, one, we're player centric and we're doing everything to make sure that the player can succeed and all these things, but then you go and you use the CBA in a fashion in which it was never intended. Service time was about just counting days and understanding how much time a guy spent in the major leagues, as opposed to using it to essentially steal an extra year of club control on a player. That's tough, man. It's saying like, oh yeah, we're doing everything for you, but when it comes to paying you, we're going to do what's best for us, and we're going to hold you to it, and we're going to leverage you to that. That's a tough message to send. And not only does that message go to Nate Pearson, but everybody else in that clubhouse looks at it and says, okay, well, if the CBA allows these guys to screw us, then they're going to do that. And that's how the players are going to look at it. Even if it does exist in the CBA, even if they understand that this is a cold, ruthless business, even if they understand that's what the deal is, it still doesn't feel good. Two, at a certain point, you're either going for it or you're not. And Nate Pearson is undeniably one of the 5 best starting pitchers on this team right now. I don't know how you'd make that argument. He might, in terms of stuff, he might be one of the best 5 pitchers in the American League East in terms of stuff. If you're saying we're trying to win, all we care about is winning, we're all about winning, you start the season with Nate Pearson on your roster. It says, hey, let's go. And, I understand the way that this season has played out, that it's only going to cost you a week or not even a week. And that, it's in a way, from a business standpoint, it's almost negligent, borderline fireable to allow him to be on the opening day roster. But these kind of things, these decisions can be corrosive. And, injuries saved them from having to make this call with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. But, the pandemic has left them to make this decision on Nate Pearson. And, as much as they say, we're going with our best players, I mean, it's clearly not, because if the best players are on the roster, Nate Pearson's making it.
Right. And I think if you're looking at this decision and you're trying to understand, hey, who are the best players on this team? Nate Pearson's among them. If you're saying, what's in the spirit of what it means to try out for a team and make the team? Well, if you think about that, right down to the lowest level of sports, you're taking the best players. And Nate Pearson is one of the best players. So if you don't do that, once you stop doing that, you're moving away from the spirit of choosing a team and you're moving into something else. And in this case, what you're moving toward is a business decision. It is purely dollars and cents. It is trying to maximize values. They're basically, it's a spreadsheet move is what this is. And it's understandable, because if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, there are a lot of reasons to just wait a few more days and say, all right, is there that much of a difference between having Nate Pearson start game 7 as opposed to game 3 of a 60-game season? I mean, he's still going to start a lot of games. He's still going to have his opportunity. Does this really stall his development to wait a few more days? I mean, I see those arguments, but you also have counterexamples. And I guess I'm veering more into the territory of making Shi's point for him here. But, I think, like, you look at teams like the Braves and how they handled Jason Hayward and Bobby Cox's last season, or the Padres with Fernando Tatis Jr. up all of last year, or even the Royals, a losing team that's breaking camp with Brady Singer this year, former Jays pick, who's now going to be in the Royals rotation. So I think when you look at all those factors, they are reminders that you don't have to play this game through that accountant's game, playbook, but most teams choose to do that. And honestly, it would be very difficult not to play the game that way, given the rules that are in place.
I think the clincher for me in this discussion is that the Blue Jays not expected to be competitive this year, although perhaps that actually changed a little bit today. So I don't know if that's really the case anymore. Now, like, that Nate Pearson started at the beginning of the season seems a lot more valuable with extended playoffs. But stick with me here. You have other starting pitching options, so you have other guys you can throw in who probably aren't going to be as good as Nate Pearson, but like, I could see a combination of Thomas Hatch and Anthony Kay getting the Blue Jays through 6 or 7 fine innings with 2 or 3 runs in. Like, that's a fine outing, and I could see those two guys doing it. And see, if you start this season with Nate Pearson on the roster, and then a week or two later, it is wiped out due to COVID. Well, congratulations, because now you have burned a year of his service clock, not only at the beginning of his service time, but at the end. So you've now actually burned 2 in that scenario, which I don't know, it could happen. Like, a lot of people don't expect this this season to really be pulled off, depending on COVID-19 test results. Shine, I'll let you back in because I can see that you have a point here. What? Let's hear your rebuttal.
Well, I was going to say that, I agree that is a monumental risk, right? But on the flip side to that, if you're going to play that game, then you're not going to call him up at all this year because, well, you're going to risk burning that year for 3 starts, even if you've gotten the extra year of control by putting him on. And, the other thing that, especially when you look at how tight in all likelihood these standings are going to be, if you miss the playoffs by 1 game and Nate Pearson makes 10 starts instead of 12 starts, and that might be the difference between you making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, what's the opportunity cost lost there, right? So, we always make these assumptions too, that year of control is going to be valuable. And look, if Nate Pearson turns into what he can be, it's going to be worth tens of millions of dollars, right? But guys burn out. And again, this isn't hoping that it happens to Nate Pearson, but who would have thought that, an extra year of control on Aaron Sanchez wouldn't have been worth anything. And right now, he was non-tendered and he's without a team. So, injuries happen, all these different things can happen. You get only so many chances to win now. The Blue Jays are on the cusp of being a very good team. It could happen this year. It's more likely that next year is the beginning of their window, but players have their own timelines. This is a team that's young, aggressive. They believe in themselves. They chafe at people who tell them that they're not good enough. And there's an element of holding Nate Pearson down and saying, hey, this isn't necessarily, we're not trying to do everything we can to win. We're managing in the long term too. And if you're thinking about 2026 as you're heading into 2020, that's not always a great message to send to your players.
I think Shai makes a good point then, in that, you are betting on a pretty low percentage outcome that, like, in that 7th year of control, you're still going to be going year to year in arbitration with Nate Pearson. Like, if he's that good, would you not just extend him? Would you not have signed him to a contract already? Along with that, after the CBA is renegotiated in 2021, or after the season of 2021, do we even expect service time rules to be the same going forward?
Right. I mean, a lot of unknowns here, and I think in the face of those unknowns, what a front office would do in a typical situation would say, we don't know exactly. Let's map this out. Let's play this out, and let's come up with an expected value. So you don't know, but you expect that Nate Pearson will be, based on his historical precedent, his own body, his own injury history, you expect he'll be a 2-WAR pitcher in 2026, or maybe 3-WAR or 4-WAR pitcher. Then that's your expectation. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, maybe it's nothing at all, but you base your decision off of that. And, certainly 2 or 3 or 4 WAR in 2026 is probably preferable to 1 start now.
I will say that I do hope that, in the next round of CBA negotiations, that service time rules are adjusted. And I know that these 2 sides have had the opportunity to do that in the past, and they haven't for one reason or another. Maybe it's because these negotiations are handled by, veterans and guys, a bit later in their career than the, Nate Pearsons who are coming up into their first year of the season. But it is demoralizing that, the Blue Jays are put in this position where they are so strongly incentivized to keep one of the best young pitchers in baseball off their roster. I mean, everybody loses. Pearson loses out, as Ben said, on valuable development time. Look at that start against the Red Sox the other night. He goes out and his mechanics are all messed up, and he has to figure out a way to get through a big league lineup for a few innings, and then rediscovers his mechanic later on and starts pitching a lot better. Think about how valuable that experience is. And I know it's only 1 start that he's missing, but he's not getting that many starts this year. Like, if he's only getting 10 starts this year, 1 is 10% of his season, 10% of his potential development. Like, that's not insignificant. So Nate Pearson loses, the Blue Jays lose because they don't have this incredibly talented pitcher on their roster from the get-go in a season where they might want to contend and where their players want to contend. Fans lose because they don't get to see Nate Pearson pitch right away. We lose because we don't get to cover this really talented young player, and baseball loses because it is not putting its best product on the field. And that is like the biggest thing for me, guys. Shi, chime in. I just think that this rule prevents some of the best players in baseball from taking the field at the highest level. And I think that's bad for all parties.
Arden, that is part of the point. And, one thing that it's really struck me as I've seen some of the reaction to some of the things that I've written about Nate Pearson and this situation is how normalized the view has become that this is okay and this is smart and this is what teams should be doing instead of going all out to be the best that they can be every day. And this is what has led to tank teams and all these different things that have prevented guys that, essentially, stopping to spend on free agency, saying that if you're going to lose, if you're only going to win 80 to 83 games, you're better off losing to 65 winning 65 and getting a better draft pick. That's not where you want the game to be. You want your team to be competing as hard as it can every year, right? Because you do get fluke years and I understand how probabilities work. I understand that how value works and all those things, but eventually you get to a point where your sport's it's not competitive enough. And as much as people don't want to hear Scott Boras when he goes on about it and things of that nature, there's an important point there. Like if your product is entertainment and your product is winning and a lot of teams aren't trying to win, that's damaging to your product. So, this mentality of smart management, it has won a significant portion of public opinion. I'm not sure that that's good for the game ultimately, but that seems to be the world that we exist in now, where you've got very smart people, incredibly smart people managing these clubs the way Fortune 500 companies are managed. And this is one of the unfortunate byproducts that I think is very corrosive to what your game is.
Right. And it's true, Shi, that they do manage these teams as though they're Fortune 500 companies, and that's good for their bottom lines. But, those companies are managed differently than you would manage an entertainment business. And, to reinforce your point and Arden's points, like there is a fundamental problem if you have some of the absolute best baseball players, entertainers in the world at your disposal, and they are not on the team. That is a problem.